Hi, I'm Sarah.
And I'm David. We got to talk about the Amazing Race 32. It's almost the end. We are getting close here.
So close. And the exciting thing about this is it's that 5 alliance. So what's gonna happen?
It's done.
But first, if you're new to this channel, please click subscribe and give this video a thumbs up.
And if you want to support us on Patreon, find that link in the description. You know where it is. Come on. Stop playing around.
You got it. You know
it is. Okay, you know. Cool. We say it every video. Okay, so we're going to Cambodia.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Yeah,
Top
right.
5 teams. They're all on the same flight, of course.
Of course. It is fun. Like, we've talked about how we don't love them always being on the same flight. But I will say that taxi race out of the airport is fun because, they're just like, oh, they got a cab and then our cab's over here. So that's kind of a fun scramble to see.
Yeah. And honestly, down to this 5, this was really fun that they were on each other's heels. I did really appreciate that.
Agreed. And we get a little bit from Will and James they are really, they're getting a devious edit here. They're always plotting, always thinking.
But they are like the stars of the season. They've got more camera time than anybody.
Yeah, they're really thinking about the game. At least from the footage that we're seeing, they're thinking about the game on a different level than the other teams are. They are now targeting Gary and D'Angelo. We want to get them out. They're kind of giving us sound bites like these when they're in the cab on the way.
Yeah, and we hear from the McKibben brothers as well. We see that there is this 3 that we've heard about. Once the 5 is eliminated, the 3 that's apparently the next alliance, they have a plan, and it's to get the footballers out. So they know a U-turn is probably coming up. So they have, orchestrated amongst the 3 of them that whoever gets there first is going to U-turn the footballers. But it does not go as planned, y'all.
It does not. So the first thing that they have to do, they're all together sort of in this leg still. They take their cabs, they get to this place where they have to find gnomes, and because they're carrying the Travelocity gnome with them the whole leg. So cute. Yes. So cute. Because it's we've seen before when people forget the gnome, they leave the gnome and they have to go back for the gnome. So it's it's an added layer that they're not they're used to having do we have the clue? Do we have our bags? Do we have everything? But this is a new thing for them to potentially forget.
Remember.
They don't in this episode, but it's still fun. And then they have to get in their tuk-tuks.
Yes. Okay. So they are looking for the tuk-tuks, the little autos. I don't know what we call them anymore.
Well, I guess they're autos in India, but tuk-tuks in Cambodia, apparently.
Cambodia. Okay, cool. Yeah. So the first time we see just a little space is Ishwar and Aparna. It looks like they ran the wrong way, and the footballers follow them. So that allows Will and James and the McKibbens to get their gnomes first. Hung and Chi shortly behind them. The football players do sort of circle back and get there, but that's when we first get a little bit of space with these teams.
Yeah, right. So it is those 3, which is, like you say, the alliance. They're kind of out first with the gnomes and the tuk-tuks, and then they have to get on these boats to ride to a temple to make this offering to get their next clue. And this is where things kind of for the first time. I'm sure it's not the first, but it feels like the first time that the McKibbens are in a situation that they cannot control. They haven't had taxi problem to any kind of extreme degree so far. And now they're in this boat and they're so good. They're practicing the routine on the boat on the way. They want to be respectful of the temple. And then all of a sudden, boat shuts down. Teams start passing them and they're no. This is not how this is supposed to go. We're the McKibben brothers.
Totally. Hi, Jess. Thanks for stopping by.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, I loved that the gnome is wearing a life preserver now. I loved the McKibben brothers are being so conscientious, do not want to mess up in front of monks. How do we bow? Yeah. And then all of a sudden, chunk, boat's dead. And they're what? Teams are passing them. And of course, they're giving us sound bites, whether this is real or not, but we're hearing is this it for us? Are we going out because a boat died?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Could happen. Could happen.
And it's like, there just feels like, to me, I'm not even on the boat. And I'm like, how do you fix a boat in the middle of the water?
Right.
Like,
yeah. I'm like, are they going to bring another boat out for them to pick them up? Like, do they get towed?
We're in Cambodia. You're not calling AAA. You know, it feels like an easy fix when you're, you know, in America. I'm sure they have a similar system in Cambodia.
Sure
I'm not saying that.
Yes.
But like Riley and Madison don't have those people on speed dial. So what are they going to do? You know, so it's kind of stressful. But we see Gary and D'Angelo and Ishwar and Aparna are still behind at this point. So it's not like panic for the McKibbins, but they're nervous seeing Hung and Chi and Will and James pass them.
Yes, and Will and James do yell out. Like, we saw Gary and D'Angelo, like they're right here. So of course that puts a little fear in the Beard Bros. But they do eventually get their boat going, and it doesn't seem like they lose too much time as each team approaches this area with the monks. And they go through their little ceremonial bow and deliver the basket. They have to wait for each team. So there's no passing at this point. And it's just kind of going through the motions for this.
Yeah, it's not like anybody's, you know, disrespecting the rights or, you know, the way that they're supposed to do this. It's just kind of like, do it and you'll get their clue. And then now it's the detour, which is fish or garden. Now, Sarah, you explain what this is. I got to shut my cell phone up. It's blowing up. I'm so sorry.
Oh, I couldn't even hear. Okay, get it. So David's so popular, you guys. So we have our fish one, which you have to pile up a certain amount of fish. Makes sense for the people who just want to do like the just get it done task. I don't know. There's probably a better name for that kind of task where you're like, we just have to go through the motions and get it done. Or the farm, which is like a floating garden. It might be a little more details, more things you have to pay attention to type task.
Yes, and it is the first two teams who choose the garden. It's Hung and Chi and Will and James who choose to do that. The other three, you know, the McKibbins do eventually, you know, fix their boat and they get there and they choose the fishing, and as do D'Angelo and Gary and Ishwar and Aparna. So it's like a 3-2 split on who's doing what detour here.
And honestly, Hung and Chi wanted to do the fish, but their boat driver accidentally took them to the farming location. So instead of like taking time or whatever, they were just kind of like, oh, okay, I guess we're going to do the farming now. So that would have actually been interesting to just have Will and James the only ones over there. But even though everyone's complaining about like pulling this net, they have to do more than 3,000 feet of net. Their arms are burning. My shoulders were burning just watching.
I know, their triceps.
Even though they were like, oh my God, this is hard, they started finishing before the two teams that were doing the farming. So
for sure, it's like time wise, this is just much faster. Yes, your arms are going to be sore tomorrow, whatever. You might have to like sleep on your back. You can't sleep on your shoulder. But this fishing net thing is a much more straightforward, easy. You just got to get through it. And Gary and D'Angelo now are making up a ton of time here because they finished the fish net first.
Because they have arm muscles?
Right. Yes.
Because they're like jacked. I mean, they still were like, dang, this is hard work. But yeah, they are like flying through this. Okay, so we see the farming start first. Then we see the collecting. Siblings finally show up. But the McKibbins do finish first with the fishing, and the footballers are right behind them. So we see these two teams run out together.
My bad. I thought Gary and D'Angelo were first, but it's like just neck and neck.
It's neck and neck.
Okay.
The footballers get out just slightly ahead, but by the time they get to the next thing, which we know is the U-turn, and they're running and the footballer players are running, and it's like, where is it? Is it up there? Is it up there? This is when we realize that the Beard Bros, the McKibbins, can't U-turn the football players as they had planned because they're there together. That just isn't going to work.
No, it's not. No. So, you know, we'd see the football players use the U-turn on Ishwar and Aparna, and then the strategy for the McKibbin brothers becomes, well, let's U-turn the football players because it just kind of nullifies the rest of this. And we want to protect essentially the other two people in this final three alliance that we have going. They're thinking about like, we got to save Hung and Chi. We got to save Will and James. Sorry, Ishwar and Aparna, but we kind of have to screw you guys by voiding out the second half of this double U-turn.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because ultimately the football players are the ones who are making the decision to U-turn Ishwar and Aparna.
Mm-hmm.
The McKibben brothers get to play it off like this was they didn't have a plan at all. Like, right? So the
Sure.
Football players have no idea that they narrowly missed being U-turned.
Yeah.
And they don't have, the Beard Bros also don't have to explain why they're burning the board, right? Because Gary and D'Angelo know what they're doing as they run off. But they're just like, and we'll just help you get Ishwar and Aparna out by burning the board. But in reality, they're protecting their other alliance members.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Makes sense?
Yes, it is tough. And, you know, as these other teams continue to finish, you know, Ishwar and Aparna, I think, finished the fishing thing before either of the garden teams finished their task. So Ishwar and Aparna show up to the double U-turn and they're like, well, we just got screwed. And they kind of know that it's because of, well, it's kind of a double thing here. Like, I think they're most angry at Gary and D'Angelo because they're the ones who U-turn them. But I think they're also recognizing like the McKibben brothers also burned the other half of this for us. Like we could have U-turned somebody else, you know, so they're kind of pissed at both.
Exactly. Because that's the point of burning the board. Ishwar and Aparna showed up next. They were the third people to show up to this board. They would then, to help themselves, put up Will and James or whoever they wanted, Hung and Chi. That's how they give themselves a chance. And this is exactly why the Beard Bros did what they did, so that Ishwar and Aparna did not have that option. And they are technically the only ones being U-turned in this leg. So, unfortunately for them, they have to now go farm.
Yep. So Hung and Chi now are finishing the garden challenge, and Will and James. Like, it's not like either of them messed up here. They both, it looked, you know, from the editing like they did one check and they both got it, but it's just the time-consuming nature of this garden thing. Am I right here?
Yeah. I mean, yes, it just seems to be a bit time-consuming because you have to put the right plants in the right place, mix the soil, but yeah, not super difficult.
Yeah, but strange to see Will and James like at the back of the pack. Like the fact that Will and James are finishing a detour, you know, it would have been in last place were it not for the fact that Ishwar and Aparna now have to come do the garden. It's like an unusual set of circumstances here, but they're not super far behind. Like everybody, this leg is so close overall. And that's what makes this U-turn situation so deadly in the end, you know? But we then are moving on to the roadblock, which is fit the mold. And they're having to like make a tile detail challenge that we always love.
Okay, why are we not watching the demonstration? Hello? How many teams did not watch the demonstration?
It's like watching the demonstration is synonymous with reading the clue. This is the key to how to do this. And they're just like, I got it. I don't need to see it. No. Oh, it's those colors. Okay, I got it. But it's like, no, you just take a breath. Step back and just watch one time all the way through. Don't come in halfway through him making the tile and be like, oh, cool, that makes sense. No, watch from the beginning until the end.
How many tiles have you made? Do you do this often? Is this a regular activity for you? You're like,
I know.
Okay, cool. Cement, paint. Okay, got it. Go. No, you've literally never done this. And I know you feel like you want to race. You want to just do it. But like, don't you just want to do it once and get it?
Yeah.
So this is when it becomes so shocking. So we've got the McKibbens and the football players there first, starting their tiles, and it is just going horribly wrong after horribly wrong and after horribly wrong.
Yes. Oh man. And then Chi and Will show up and they're, you know, not really doing any better. Like it's just like disaster tile after disaster tile. If I were the man doing the demo, I would probably be there like, oh, you think this is easy, huh? You think you can watch me do it halfway? and then
Yeah.
you got it. Well, the
Mhm.
joke's on you because you're not greasing your tile, and I'm not going to tell you about it. Like, I would be so annoyed at these people who are like, how hard can it be? It's just making a tile.
It does kind of look like that because there's also the guy doing the demonstration, but there's also the guy just standing there watching to approve you. And I like felt like he was staring at them like, you dumb Americans. Like,
Yeah. You think you're
how
so smart.
right. How smug
Yeah.
are you? Okay, so I do believe though Will did watch the demonstration because he does. I think he only messes up like one, right? And then he gets it, something like
Yeah.
that. Whereas we
He's
are
an
on
artsy
like,
and craftsy person, so he's
guess
good.
what, guys? He likes arts and crafts. He wants to
Yeah.
do this one.
Yeah. Yeah. It's literally like,
Um,
I was thinking about, often I think about us as a team on this show
yes.
and like
Mhm.
who would do what.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're doing all the height stuff, and I also assign everything to do with colors to you, and I
Yes.
also assign anything to do with arts and crafts. And I'm like, I don't know what roadblock I would
David,
do.
what are you doing? Yeah.
I don't know. I
That
guess
means you're like pulling the oxes. You're doing all the
there you
physically
go,
challenging
physical
ones.
things. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna need you to
Yeah, I know.
keep it up.
Start working out.
Can you do some CrossFit like Leo,
Yeah,
please?
truly,
Okay.
truly.
Exactly. Yes, that's. I would be making this tile for sure.
Mhm,
Oh,
yeah.
and then there was a slide puzzle as part of this. You got
yeah.
to make the tile, then do the slide puzzle. Oh my God, you guys, I love a puzzle first off, but a slide puzzle can be so challenging and confusing. And I was like ready. I was ready for someone smart to come in and just like nail this puzzle while everyone else is struggling. And that is not what happened.
Nope.
No
Yeah.
one struggled
So
with that puzzle.
as Ishwar and Aparna are at the garden, they're doing the garden. Again, this part of the garden it's not that challenging. They just have to get it done. This is when, Riley is realizing this is a grease situation. It's like baking,
Yes.
like I got to grease the pan before I put the
Yes.
cake in the pan or the cake's going to get stuck in the pan. So he realizes that. And then, like you said, it doesn't take Will long either. And so they are the first two. They get their tile. They both don't really struggle with the puzzle. And then they're to the pit stop. That's 1-2,
Yes.
McKibbins and Will and James.
That's it. They're in and out. This is how, like you said, Will and James were at the back of the pack. So weird to see, but they step up on a detour and just nail it because they're really, really good here. So yeah, those are the first two teams that get out of it. And I'm loving Gary on the sidelines here. He is so mad at D'Angelo. He knows exactly what's happening.
He knows.
And you can't do anything from the side. You can't even say, why don't you watch the demonstration again? Nothing.
You're going to get a penalty if you do that. Yep. So he's just like stewing, like so annoyed. We hear him say, like, obviously it's not loud enough for D'Angelo to hear, but he's like, he's not watching the demonstration. Like he has to grease that like Gary knows exactly what to do. And it's one of those things where he just wishes he could like tag team in and do this because he knows exactly how to do it. And he just has to watch D'Angelo not watch the demonstration over and over again. And D'Angelo's like, man, this is tough. Like, I can't figure this out, And Gary's like, all you have to do to figure it out is watch the freaking demonstration. Like, just take a minute, And then, to add insult to injury here for Gary and D'Angelo, frankly, Ishwar and Aparna show up.
Hello.
And I am loving salty Aparna. Like, give it to him. You know what I mean? We get D'Angelo in his interview saying like, come on, it's the game. Like, what happened to sportsmanship? And we're just playing the game. And I'm like, trash talking is part of the game too. So you better learn to live with it.
And I believe football players are pretty into that. So don't act like this has never happened. And maybe you would have done this if you had been U-turned.
Yeah.
It's hard to say how you would behave. But yes, hello. Aparna arrives to the scene. And D'Angelo is been struggling at this tile for who knows how long. We're at like 10
hours
attempts or something at this point. And I just like, how awkward was that moment? I love for them, for us, entertainment.
Gold.
For them, whoa.
Because
she's up in his grill and he's like, what's up? What do you mean?
Yeah.
Come on.
He's like, come on, leave me alone. Leave me alone. And she immediately kind of recognizes like, oh, he's struggling. Okay, well, I'll just make him even more nervous. Like, oh, hope you don't keep messing up, D'Angelo. Oh, hate for you to have to do this 10 more times. She's like really rubbing it in that he's struggling here and distracting him, and that kind of, I think she's hoping like, Ishwar, I'm like buying you time here. I'm trying to distract Gary or D'Angelo. Like, let's make this quick,
Mm-hmm. Oh, it was so good. But I think what happens around this point is that Chi goes back over to look at the demonstration again. I know I would like to just point out that Hung is just quietly sitting there while Gary's like, he's not watching the demonstration. And she's like, Chi, I love you.
Yeah, right.
You'll get it. Like she's not stewing quite as much. But she does go back over and he's like, I really do need to watch this. And he realizes the greasing. And then I don't know if it was just editing, but it felt like D'Angelo was like, oh, what's this? What is that? What's happening?
But also, I'm sure it's editing, but Ishwar seems to figure out the grease thing before they show D'Angelo figuring out the grease thing. Like this last 10 minutes is like, this did not happen chronologically like this. They're let's move Ishwar figuring out the grease here, and then we'll do D'Angelo figuring out the grease, but then D'Angelo will finish the puzzle, and then Ishwar, but then they're going to get held up. Like there's a lot of story producing happening in the last 10 minutes. And like, bravo, you did a good job. It was fun to watch.
Oh, yeah.
But
masterclass in editing, because I'm like, but is it going to happen? Are they going to pass them? What's happening? Because, it looks like Ishwar greased it, but then he's like, oh, I just messed up the colors. Let me just fix this real quick. And you're like, oh, wait, is this Because then all of a sudden D'Angelo's like, yeah, my tile, it's perfect. And you're like, wait, what? How did that happen so quick? Ooh.
Yes. Meanwhile, of course, Chi, who's good at everything, once he finishes out, once he figures the grease thing out, he does the puzzle and he's like, ooh, I just realized it's the gnome. How fun. And then they, go to Angkor Wat and they're on the pit stop. They are third place. So this is our final three alliance finishing 1, 2, 3 here. Well done to them.
Boom. Is that a preview of the finale? I'm wondering.
Yeah.
Well, okay. D'Angelo gets his tile and again, nobody struggles on this puzzle. So he's like in and out, basically. As soon as he does the puzzle, he's done. And then we see Ishwar right behind him, but we cannot tell how close they actually are.
No. Well, because it's like Gary and D'Angelo can't find their tuk-tuk, right?
Yeah. Where's our driver?
The tuk-tuk? Yeah.
Over there. And I'm like, oh, I never know with this stuff when they start showing us. I can't find our driver. Where's our driver?
Right.
Then a tree's being taken down. They're sitting on the road for a tree to be removed or something.
Yeah, totally. But the fact that it's only Gary and D'Angelo hitting these like speed bumps and it's just they cut to Ishwar and Aparna and they're like,
just like
positive attitudes.
Yep.
We're just like cruising to the finish line. I'm like, you're just making us think that Gary and D'Angelo have, hit this big snag.
Because if they were right behind, they'd be stuck in that tree traffic too, right?
Exactly,
we're going to the same place.
Yes.
But, editing, who's coming? Come on, Ishwar. Come on, Aparna. Come on, Gary. And then, boom, who shows up? It's Gary and D'Angelo, fourth on the mat.
Yeah. I mean, still, even though, like, this is kind of, you and I saw it coming. Like, we know, everybody, I'm sure, in the chat saw it coming. We know how the editing goes on these shows. So we were all kind of expecting Gary and D'Angelo to show up fourth and Ishwar and Aparna to be out. However, I do love the drama of Gary and D'Angelo U-turned this team and barely beat them. They were at the roadblock together. So it wasn't this like big time difference between these two teams. Kind of a fun finish on this episode.
Absolutely. And I mean, I do appreciate that Gary and D'Angelo said, like, we needed to U-turn the weaker team to give us enough time. And I at least appreciated that because, like, I want to know why and why you're U-turning whoever you're U-turning. And that does make sense that they thought that Ishwar and Aparna would take longer anyway. So give me more of a buffer so that I can make sure that I finish because, look how much he struggled in that tile challenge. Yeah. Had there not been a U-turn at all, they would have been eliminated this leg.
Well, and I'm curious also if the second half of that U-turn hadn't been burned, would Ishwar and Aparna still be in it? You know, like how far behind were they? If they had been able to U-turn, you know, Hung and Chi, would that have given them enough time to finish in 4th place instead of 5th?
This is what's dangerous about U-turning Hung and Chi, though. They're so good at everything.
So good. So good.
Same thing with Will and James. I feel like you U-turn either one of those teams, they can do it quickly and they don't necessarily leave. So you just never know. And that's the danger of U-turning anyone at any time, which is why it's exciting, because all of a sudden we got smack talk while 2 people are doing the task together.
Yeah.
When you thought you'd be done way earlier and already on the mat by the time they showed up.
Yeah. You weren't. You weren't. So, you know, Gary and D'Angelo are, of course, relieved. This is our final 4 now. I expected, honestly, Ishwar and Aparna to go this week, even without the U-turn. They just, you know, statistically have had the weakest showing of these 5 teams. So I'm not particularly surprised, but I don't know. I'm interested to see how this is going to go now, because everyone's going to be targeting the football players.
And it seems like a mess of an episode that's coming up. Like the preview seemed like everyone is struggling.
Yeah.
Looks like Will and James might be lost at some point or going in the wrong direction. I mean, we know that anything can happen. And this is it. This is the next episode is the last one before the finale, the finals.
Yeah.
So you got to make it. You can't be the 4th team out.
No.
You got to make that top 3.
No more room for errors. I do not think that we're going to see Will and James struggling in the running in heels challenge, because Will wore like massive heels when he auditioned for America's Next Top Model. He just like strutted into the room with Tyra in like 8-inch stilettos. So I think he's going to be A-okay with that.
Okay.
But getting lost, this is the time when good teams go out because of one taxi problem, you know?
Yes.
So you just don't know.
Because technically all 4 of these teams are good.
Yeah.
I mean, the football players have a disadvantage because they have 3 teams working against them, even though they don't know this at this time. But they're a good team. So.
They're good. The reason that those 3 targeted Gary and D'Angelo and not Ishwar and Aparna is because Gary and D'Angelo were better. You know, they were like, this is a really good team, but now we're at final 5. And so now's the time to target them. Like now's the time to use a U-turn on them. It could potentially get them out because there are so few teams. So it's like, that's why, because Gary and D'Angelo are very good at this race. It really is like anyone's game at this point. I think these are such strong teams.
Absolutely. And I mean, I kind of loved at the top. It just didn't go everybody's way. I mean, it's gone the Mind Five's way this whole time.
Yeah.
Everything they've wanted has happened. And this is the first time that we've seen it not go their way. So that's just fun for us viewers to mix it up a little bit. But, you know, it's a bummer to see Ishwar and Aparna go. But we were going to be bummed out by whoever went at this point, because we've loved these teams for weeks, for most of the season, for all of the season, since the beginning. Yeah.
Since the beginning. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's always a bummer to see them go. But the good news is that I get to talk to them tomorrow, so I can ask them how far back they really, really were.
Now, Sarah, please tell them I said hello. I can't join the exit interview tomorrow because of work, but I need to know all of the tea. So get it from them, please.
I will. And if anyone in the chat has questions you want me to ask Ishwar and Aparna tomorrow, please leave them or leave them in the comments. Pass them along, and I will be happy to ask.
Yes. Very exciting.
That was it. It feels shorter because we've been doing 2 episodes at a time the last few weeks.
I know.
And this was just 1 episode.
Easy peasy.
Easy peasy, you guys. Super fun episode. Thank you, everyone who joined us live in the chat. We appreciate it.
Yes, and if you're joining us later, like Sarah said, leave a comment with your questions for Ishwar and Aparna, and give us your predictions for this penultimate leg. Final 4, who's going to be in the finale? We want to know what you think.
Who's going to make it? Yes, we do. Okay, we'll see you next time.
All right, bye.
Bye.